Hey, how we doing? I'm Andy. This is Spiders. Thanks for coming back. Bit of a change around today. Might have a bit of a squeaky chair actually. Better not try and move too much. But yeah, bit of a change around today because the house is empty. Well, say the house is empty. Little man, grandson's in bed. Everybody else is out. It's been a hot day today. We're in the second heat wave. But anyway, that's all by the by. So what I'm going to talk about is my recent pairing video that I did of the Orphnaecus species negros. Well, we got a sack. So we, just to sort of recap on things, we paired this one back end about the 30th of January, I think it was, first off, with a male that I had that had matured. We had nothing. Anyway, come June, I think it was around about the middle of June time, I paired her again with a second male that I had that had matured. And then on mid-July it was in fact, let me look, I have got it written down here. So I found the sack on the 12th of July. And obviously the plan was to leave it the 30 days, but the 30 days would have actually fallen on the 11th of August. Now today's the 13th of August, so I've pulled this sack a few days ago and I pulled it a day earlier than planned. I had been debating whether or not to pull a little bit earlier anyway, because it's a dwarf species. So anyway, I went a day earlier, and the reason for that was that we were coming into this second heat wave, and obviously she carried this sack. She'd laid it about 3 days before the first heat wave that we had not so long ago, and then she's carried it, and I could see her in the enclosure. Everything's been good, but as we were coming to this heat wave and it was getting right to the important bit, I didn't want them temperatures to it like 30 plus, and I ended up eating it because of the shock to the system. So I decided to pull the sack. So this is that video. So yeah, have a look and I'll see you at the end. Cheers. So here we have her. This is the enclosure that she was paired up in. It's one of the Asda shoe seal tubs. Now we had planned on rehousing her, but she dropped this egg sack not long after that last pairing, so I thought, well, best to leave her there. Like, so you see there's two entrances to a burrow. The one I'm working on here, it's all sealed up, and there's one just to the left as well. But what it meant was there was like a V-shaped wedge of substrate in the middle, so you know, just basically working that out so that I can get down to the chamber underneath where the spider's at. You may be able to see that little bit of white right at the bottom. That's the edge of the egg sac. Now I didn't really get the best angle for the camera here, but if I'm honest, I was being careful because these have got a bit of a reputation for being feisty. But yeah, this was me just sort of carefully grabbing the sack, and I think it was the second go we did manage to pull it away, like, and there we have it. Now I gotta admit, as soon as I looked at it, it didn't seem quite right, you know, the way it was hanging on the tweezers. It just seemed heavy, half full, and I don't know, there just wasn't something quite right about it, if I'm honest. So onto the opening. Now, as you'll have seen on other egg sac videos that other people have put out, there's a lot of layers to one of these things, so it was just a case of very carefully, when we tweezers just gone through it sort of one layer at a time, and just carefully opening the egg sac up in the hope that, you know, whatever we'd find inside would be good. So there you can see we got through all them layers, and then finally we got that little hole, and we actually got into the middle, and we were able to open this thing up and have a look at what was really going on in there. Now, if I'm honest, at this point I could see the eggs in there, and to me they all looked dead. It wasn't until I sort of reviewed this footage afterwards, in fact I think I actually walked away and said to the missus that it was a duff sack. But yeah, it wasn't until I actually come back that I was able to realise that there was some legs moving in there. So now we're just going to empty this out and see how it all pans out, see what's good, see what's bad. Right, I'll apologise in advance here because my hands are all over the place and you don't actually see a great deal. But as you see this sack, everything seems to be stuck together. I'm not sure why, like I say. She lives in a moist environment anyway, but once I found this sack, I stopped watering, I stopped feeding, it was just left alone. The enclosure itself, it wasn't massively dry, but it certainly wasn't damp. So I can only assume that there was something on the inside that went wrong, whether it be some duff eggs or even a bit of moisture that might have got in before she's wrapped the eggs up. I'm just not fully sure. But as you can see, there is some that are moving around, but there's a hell of a lot of them that are either stuck together or, as you can see, still stuck to the inside of the sack. And you can see how dirty the inside of that sack is, so that tells me that this has been going on for a good while. There's part of me now wishes that I'd probably pulled this maybe 4 or 5 days earlier, but again, there's no guarantee that I wouldn't have sort of found things just at an earlier point. I mean, I may have been able to do something if I had found them earlier on, but I think this sack was destined to sort of fail anyway by the looks of it. Or not destined to fail, that's probably the wrong statement, but I'm just not sure whether it would have worked out whatever time I'd have pulled it like. So yeah, you can see some of those clumps of the eggs all stuck together. I separated the ones that I could see sort of twitching and moving, and you may be able to see some of them sort of on the tissue here just moving around. There wasn't a great deal. I think I probably pulled out about 30, maybe a few more. And yeah, the next step then was to basically try separating all these little clumps and see if there was anything that we might be able to salvage or save. If there was any sort of eggs with legs that I come across or anything that was moving, I put that into a separate pot in the hope that we might be able to bring them through as time goes on. And then whatever was left was pretty much the eggs that definitely weren't going to make it. So again, they went into another pot ready just to go in the freezer before I binned them off like. So these are the ones that I was able to sort of pull out the first stage spiderlings. Now you see there's not a great deal of movement in them at the moment. I'm not holding out much hope, but we'll just have to see what goes on with it, you know. We might be lucky. Into this pot, I just put any sort of eggs that look good, and there was quite a few eggs with legs that had developed, so they were still a stage behind most of the others. So I just popped them into a pot and separated them a little bit. And again, we're just going to have to wait and see how things go. I mean, most of these may die, but I may be lucky and we'll get a few extra little spiderlings that do develop. But again, I don't know whether they're going to have been damaged in this egg sac and whether they'll survive, or there could be all sorts of problems, so we just have to play it by ear. And there you have it, a little bit of a close-up so you can see there's some good eggs in there, and there's quite a few eggs with legs. These are pretty much the ones that went into the freezer. They were either too badly stuck together, or they were dead, or as you can see, a few of those eggs have gone dark, so I don't really want to be leaving them in with the good ones that I've pulled out. And yeah, we'll have another little look at this lot. So there's one moving away there, but it's going to be a bit of trial and error over the course of the next week or so, just to see how things go, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, so that was the Orphnaecus species negros egg sac. Yeah, so it wasn't the greatest, you know, it could have been better, but there was a certain level of joy there, so I am really happy. As you know, I've been trying to breed, or looking to breed this species for about 3 years now. Finally managed to get an egg sac, and like I say, some of it was good, some of it was bad. It was, like I say, it was 3 days ago that I pulled this, so we're just going to keep sort of track of things over the next couple of weeks with those ones that are looking good. We'll just see how they are. I've lost a few of them over the last couple of days, but flip side to that is those little eggs were eggs that had separated into the second pot. Well, most of them have now molted out, so they've sort of, the ones that have died that were first level spiderlings or first stage spiderlings, there's been about maybe a dozen of those died, but probably a dozen of those eggs have molted out, and they're now in the pot. So I think there's about 50 there. I don't know, I haven't done a count up. I think we'll just wait till I know that everything's good. They've had another couple of molts, and then we'll see how many's left, and we'll do the count up then. But yeah, like I say, it could have been better, but you can't win them all. And like I say, we've got to appreciate the fact that there was a certain level of success. I'm not sure why things turned out the way they did. Could be loads of reasons, I suppose. You know, I really wish I'd sort of pulled it 4 or 5 days earlier, and maybe I could have avoided what went on. But then again, those spiderlings that were there, they might have only been eggs with legs. There could have been more of them stuck together. There's so many different sort of factors that you've got to take into account, so it's just one of those things. But yeah, like I say, as far as I'm concerned, we did have a certain level of success, so that's something. And I've obviously got this female here, so I can look at trying pairing her again in maybe 2 years time, and see what happens then in it. But yeah, so that was the Orphnaecus species negros egg sac pull, and the slings, so, and the little story that goes with it, obviously. But yeah, so thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Cheers. Ta-ra.